Hi, welcome to the What Are We Doing Here podcast, where we share the inspiring stories of two completely opposite women who overcame their unhealthy relationship with food and negative self talk, found a path to health and healing through self discovery and natural nutritional supplements. I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Brittany. And today we're going to talk about the importance of habits and routines.
Yeah. So, we were talking about how successful people in the world, like you can literally Google Elon Musk's normal routine, right? Like
Right.
his daily routine. And all of these extremely wealthy, successful people have a very structured routine because it becomes thoughtless. And every day they do the same thing so that they have a bigger capacity for important decision making. And so we wanted to go through our routines, a bit of the difference in routines and habits, how habits become routines, and how sometimes we can develop bad habits.
Me. Yeah. Adding to that, actually, I was reading something the other day. It was like, if you want to be successful, do what successful people do. Follow their
Yeah.
lead, read about them, follow their habits and routines. You will be successful also. So it all starts, back with the basics. What you do when you get out of bed, even what time you wake up, moving throughout the day. A habit is like a shortcut, right?
Yep.
When
Yeah.
you,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's like a shortcut when it becomes routine. See, look, I'm having to learn the difference here. But, when your habits become habits, you don't think about them. They're a shortcut. You get up, you brush your teeth, right?
Right. Yeah. Kind of like if a habit is one of those things that it would feel weird if you didn't do it. Like if you got up and you were rushing around in the morning and you didn't get to brush your teeth, or you went to the bathroom and you went to wash your hands and the water wasn't on, it would be like, whoa, that's weird. I need to do that because it's so ingrained. It just
Right.
happens instinctually. You don't
Mhm.
have to think about it. You do it all the time. Where routines require some effort. So if you woke up and were like, okay, I'm going to work out. I'm going to gratitude journal. Here I'm going to run through some of my stuff. I'm going to do some grounding techniques. I'm going to take my supplements. I'm going to do XYZ. And some of that can be habit that is in your routine, but it requires thought. It
Right.
requires effort because as habitual as it is for me to work out, there are still days that I wake up and I'm tired and I'm like, I could totally just sleep in. And it's in my routine, but it requires some effort and a little bit of willpower and motivation and push and drive. And so, I think if there was a fairy that came by and was like, "Ooh, I can just work you out and you don't have to do anything. You're going to stay fit." You'd be like, "Cool, give me
Right.
that easy button." So I think remembering that there is a bit of a difference, and when you start developing a new routine, if there are pieces to it that don't become a habit, that still require effort, that's okay. And it's not a failure, because I think too, sometimes we get in that mindset that if you don't do all of the things that are on that planned routine, that you failed and you throw it away. Oh, I got to restart. I can't do that. I can't make that routine work. And that's just untrue. It requires effort and it's going to be hard. So, how do you feel about that? Have you had routines that you've developed and you're like, yeah, I'm not doing that because it's too hard?
Well, it just makes me think, because you're talking about working out, like it makes me think about that. So you get up again, you have times where you feel like I don't want to do it, but your time of day you're going to do it first thing in the morning.
Yep.
So Jeremy and I have a hard time matching schedules. So our working out is not consistent because we do it together, just like you and Bill do. So it's kind of one of those things where we have to like push ourselves to do it. I have to be flexible with myself and say, okay, if we don't get there at 5 o'clock because he has to work late or he didn't make it home, I still need to go. Just because I didn't get to go at 5 o'clock, I need to go at 6. It's fine.
Right.
So I think we're different there because you do have that structure and I don't. That's where my thought goes.
I think the other thing that's habitual for me, though, is even if I'm in a weird schedule with work or lots of days in a row, that the other piece of that is being flexible. I
Right.
don't always get to do the routine that I wanted to. The as far as like the workout routine. So I
Gotcha.
what I had planned. I don't always have time. Monday is statistically my leg day. But if I worked late Friday night, I mean, it just always is. If I worked late Sunday night and I've got to be somewhere early on Monday, then it may just be stretching.
Right.
But I keep the same routine of in the morning is when I move my body.
Hmm.
So that's the big one. But vacationing, like when we were together, and it's okay if that routine is disrupted. So that's what I'm saying. We're like, working out is part of my normal routine when I'm at home, but I don't just forget about it and not get back to that routine when I'm back in normal day to day schedule. So, um,
Yeah, and
what
it's
does your morning routine look like? Do you have a
my
morning routine?
um yeah, it's more habitual for me if we're discussing the differences there because when you wake up the first thing you do is go to the restroom, take care of washing your face, brushing your teeth. Lately I've been having my restorics because I've been doing all of that kind of thing. And but then when I leave the leave that area, get dressed, get ready for the day, take the dogs out. That's my next thing, right? But, that's where it starts varying for me depending on the day.
Hmm.
It just does. My habits in there. I guess that's where, you know, I have to work for it. It has to be more routine.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, I have a very, very structured routine in the mornings, and there are pieces of it that stick regardless of where I'm at. So that's why I say working out is part of my morning routine, but it doesn't always look the same. So I wake up before I even get out of bed, I've got a glass of water on my nightstand. So that for me is a habit. Like I drink a glass of water, I take my probiotic, take my, supplements before I my feet even hit the floor. And then go, you know, do the bathroom. But then my next um, is journaling. It's gratitude journaling, and I scribble. That one never changes. Like it happens if I'm gone because I've got a notebook with me all the time. So gratitude journaling and prayer are the two things in the morning that don't change. So next is either I go work out and I ground my body and feel get connected with my body. But if I don't have time to do that, I do something very simple to get into my body and connect with my body. And it is literally the tapping. So like it's or and then stretching.
See, and so what I hear when you say these things is more time, more time, more time, more time.
I
um,
but it
Go ahead. Yeah, I want you to discuss your timing on that, please.
yeah, I mean, I get up about the same time every single day, regardless of what time I go to bed. And so that's probably one of the worst
Me,
things for me. I don't have a good bedtime schedule.
that's my
I just
problem. Hmm.
So my bedtime is difficult, but I still stick with the same morning routine and I get up at the same time every morning. Um, and then when I'm also doing the journaling though, I plan my day. That's when I make my critical task list. So it's get out of bed, drink the water, go gratitude journal. And while I'm doing that, set the intention for the day. What is the one most important thing, regardless, business wise, work wise? The kids have a school paper that
Right.
has to be filled out. There's usually one thing that I have to get accomplished for the day. That's a critical task. Then I've got some others that I sprinkle in there that I'd like to get done, but if they do, cool. If they don't, but I've got to set my intention for the day. And then, sorry, since I wasn't looking at my list, I didn't.
No,
Let me
you're
see.
good. Just
And then
just to
work out my
say,
body.
yeah, might as well throw in our how our routines have been disrupted this week, Lindsay.
Right.
The
Well, and I
reason,
think,
yeah.
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, if I'm at home, my routine is different because I structure time for work, time for podcasting, time that I actually step away with my family, right? Like, sometimes I'm like, nope, on Thursdays from 12 to 1 is, I'm spending time with Bill. Like, I have to structure that time so that it doesn't get away and we don't do it. But you're right. This week and probably for the last month for me has been very chaotic and unstructured.
So, and I just want to point this out because it kind of made it go off in my head, a bell go off in my head. But you said, you have to schedule those things so they don't get away from you. And I just wonder if that's when bad habits can be created. If you're not scheduling things out, then, oh, you've got this small block of time. And if I'm not using it intentionally, then, well, what can I do that I might enjoy? It's not a good time to sit in front of the TV,
Right.
at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That's a
Right.
bad habit. A lot of people have fallen into because of the COVID pandemic. I fell into it. I never watched TV until COVID hit. I didn't even have
Yeah.
we paid for no TV except for baseball.
Yeah. I
Sorry.
have to be very intent. Oh, no, that's a great point because I have to be very intentional with the time that I'm on social media too. Like a
You
big part of
are.
what we do is putting content in to social media, responding to people, interacting with people, but it's very easy to get away from doing the tasks that you need to do and start looking at other people's stuff,
Yeah,
right?
mindless
And
scrolling they call it. Mm-hmm.
yep. And it happens, right? That is a bad habit that I have. So I have to be extremely intentional when I get on to social media to do the tasks that I need to. And if I'm in that hole and I feel like there's a trigger that's going to cause that, I've got to set an alarm on my phone.
Mm.
I'm like, okay, I know I want to scroll right now, so I'll set a 10-minute timer on my phone. When it goes off, I'm like, oh, done.
You have to be.
I have to. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's really difficult.
And I'll
And
say too, what I'm hearing from you is fantastic. I love it. But realistically, for somebody like me, I just want to throw this out there because when I quit teaching school, things changed. So I went from being very intentional, getting up. I knew what my morning routines were. They were the same every day. I knew when I got to work. I knew how long I was going to be at work, usually, you know. And then I got off work. I was very intentional with my time then. Things were much more structured. Then when I started transitioning and quit teaching into a small business owner, there was some time there at odd times of the day that I wasn't used to having. And so that's when I had to start thinking, okay, I have to work on myself, read a self-growth book or, one of those things because that's when things can get away from you. That's when you can develop bad habits. And still now, I actually talked to one of our mentors the other day. I said, I have a little extra time during the day right now. Where do you recommend I put it? What should I pour into? Because I was having a hard time finding something that was that I could add into my structure. And I didn't want to fall into a habit of maybe watching TV or, like I love to read, reading or that kind of thing. So
you needed something that kept you productive.
productive.
And
Perfect.
believe me, I am all for relaxing and watching some Netflix if you need to, or taking the 10 minutes to scroll on social media because, those are necessary things to detach and relax. And obviously, if you're have a heightened structure and go, go, go all the time, you're going to burn out. So, I'm all for that. But I can see how I have another friend who is now at home and she says the same thing that it's you have so much time and figuring out a routine or a structure during your day because there are things that come up or
Mm.
but that is why I think it's so important, especially if you don't it's important for both sides. if you have more time and you're at home, it requires structure so that you don't lose track and be non-productive for a big part of the day. And then
Right.
for someone like me, who I'm so chaotically busy with a schedule that's every single day is different, that I have to plan the blocks of time to make sure that I give attention to my kids, to make sure that I give attention to my husband, to make sure that the things that have to get done, I have to block it into my day. But I think blocking your day may actually be a good idea too, because if you had, a structured time that you knew, even if you had 3 blocks, right? Like your morning block, you do this. Your afternoon, do you do something like that, kind of?
So actually, learned this from Lindsay. And just side note, actually, we we grow every time we talk. I feel like I learn something from you, you learn something from me. So when we were in Puerto Rico, I heard she kept talking about the 80/20, the 80/20. So actually, it's funny that you mentioned that because I came home, I read all about the 80/20, and I've been kind of trying to structure my day as such. Let's make sure that we're giving the effort where effort needs to be given, make sure we're not, some tasks need to be done. Some tasks we do because we feel like they need to be done. But some things need to be done right now. Some things can wait. You
Yep.
know, if I need to
Yep.
clean off my dining room table, I'm not going to stress over it. It is
Yeah.
not that important.
Right.
So yeah, I do. I've been working on blocking myself out more because Lindsay, we had talked about how I closed down a couple of my brick and mortar places. So with my other business, and I've got a little extra time. Which I've been inventorying some stuff out of that and all, but I'm going to have some extra time. So I've been trying to figure out what I want to do, where I want to put it. I know
Yep.
I want it to be productive.
I'm glad that you brought up the 80/20 because I talk about it a lot with food, but man, you can really apply that to your life in
Mhm.
general. That if
Yeah.
you are being productive 80% of the time, if you are eating well 80% of the time, if you are moving with intention 80% of the time, that the other 20, like, let it go if it's not that big of a deal, right?
Right.
Like, you're always, when it feels like a big deal, your feelings are valid. But like if you relax, scroll on social media, watch some Netflix, go take a bubble bath, you
Self
know?
care. That's what I
Self,
wrote down a minute ago. Self care. Because
yep,
it is important.
it is. Yeah. But same thing with food. And so
Oh, yes.
feeling so rigid with your food, and if 20% of the time I can eat the donuts with my kids. I can, but it also can't be I binge on that. It's what does my you've got to look at your day too. Is 80% of my day still prioritizing protein? Is 80% of my day still the foods that I know nourish my body well? But 20% of that I can have a piece of candy if I want it, and not being all or nothing. That's what leads to binging.
Yeah, 100%. And then you start becoming more aware. I've noticed that I have, now that I'm eating intentionally. Again, I've been home for 10 years. That's what I mean. I work from home. So becoming more intentional with my eating, making good habits,
Mhm.
doing meal prep. And instead of like, oh, I need a snack, I haven't eaten all day, like being very intentional with my eating, I'm becoming aware of it.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
self awareness. Yeah.
So
That's another good one.
that's one of those routines that you started that's now becoming a habit. And that's important to note too, that like there are a lot of routines that will just instinctively become a habit, but
Hmm.
there are some, like working out, may never ever ever become a habit that you do mindlessly. It may never.
And you know why? Because we like that instant kind of gratification.
Mhm.
Right? I mean, this day and age, like, I love to paint like a room. Why? Because I watch that changing colors. It's, mowing a yard, you can watch that happening. It's instant gratification, right?
Yeah.
Working out, it's hard and you
Yeah.
don't get instant gratification. It could be weeks before you notice changes. And I go towards that because when Jeremy, y'all, he loves me, so don't think anything about this, but he brought me home a treadmill, right? And that sounds awful, but he did. He knew I wanted to be more active, and it was so hot last summer. When he brought my treadmill home, I was having trouble. It was like staring at me like, why aren't you using me today? So I started tying it to something that gave me instant gratification. And I think we talked about this before, or maybe while we were in Puerto Rico, but I only allow myself to watch that soapy, funky TV when I'm on that treadmill. I have a small TV with a tiny Roku in my my gym office, whatever, where I am now. And I only turn on that TV when I get on that treadmill, but I also only get on those streaming networks when I'm on that treadmill. So not only have I tied something good to it and rewarding in my mind, but I'm also giving myself a little bit of self-care without it being detrimental, like sitting on the couch.
Yes, I love that. When I had to do loads of cardio when I was prepping for a show, I did the same thing. So that's awesome. I picked a show that I would never watch on Netflix because, either the kids were around or something that was like, and that was the only time that I did, because you're right. You're tying something positive to it and being able to say, and if you want to binge on it, you better get on that treadmill because that's the only time you get to do it.
Right. And sticking to
Yeah,
it. Mm-hmm.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Go ahead.
No.
Something. I was just going to say something about habits that aren't so positive. Sometimes it can be a chemical substance, like that becomes a habit. But and we don't remember to tie the cues. Like, how do we break that? What causes it? What is it that triggers you to do that habit?
So yeah, that's important right there too. The environmental cues, not just bad habits, but good habits, good routine. The when you wake up in the morning, that's an environmental trigger. What do you do first thing?
Yep.
So it affects the good habits as well, the good routines. Right. But yes, you guys know I came out to the world that I am trying to quit vaping. That being said, it's I don't know when it started. I mean, I used vaping to quit smoking. I don't remember the whole thing about smoking, why it even started. I know it was probably peer pressure because it was so long ago. But regardless, so it's been a hard journey. Lindsay has threatened to throw my vape in the ocean, and about got tackled. And I'm a lot bigger than her. She might be taller, but she probably would have hurt her. So, but but that was a turning point for me also because I think intentionally about it. So yes, bad habits, they're easy to come by. Mine is vaping.
Yeah.
They're hard to break. The environmental cues. Is it anxiety? Is it stress? What causes you to pick up that vape? Go light that cigarette? What causes these bad habits? Them to keep going. I've been reading about how to kind of move on from it and that kind of thing. And I know it's not nicotine because literally I've tried the gum. I don't like it. It makes me nauseous. I can put 0 nicotine in that vape and be fine. No headaches, nothing. So it's not an addiction anymore. It's become a habit. That picking up, would you call it self-soothing?
It is. So that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, go ahead.
A lot of those, even eating junk food. Now, a lot of them do start as a bad habit that is soothing an emotion. But then the chemicals in cigarettes, in the vape, alcohol,
addictive.
The food, it does become an addiction.
The food, yes.
But it does become an addiction. So you have to be so intentional in recognizing the cue. What causes it? What is the emotion tied to it? And
Right.
instead of reaching for the food or reaching for the alcohol or reaching for the nicotine, like sitting with that feeling and saying, like, what am I what am I running from? What is this feeling? Why am I not processing it?
Which is
But
what you
that's
made me do on the beach.
it is. I made you do it on the beach. We had a conversation today. It was a similar, like, what emotion is it that we're running from? And that's where bad habits start. But a lot of them that are chemical based, they do become an addiction. But
Correct.
even if they're
But
not.
so does eating. And
Mhm.
I was reading, and this is a long time ago, but sugar, and not just sugar, guys. When we say sugar, a lot of things turn into sugar. Lindsay's taught me that simple carbs can turn into sugars, but it affects the brain more than like what certain substances. I think it was cocaine does. Wow. Like,
Yeah.
so food is an addiction too to some people, right?
Yep.
Um,
Sugar is that dopamine hit.
yes.
Same thing.
And
Hmm.
so I think what has become a turning point for me in this journey, and I wish somebody would have set me down and said it years ago, was the self-awareness,
Hmm.
the intention.
Yep.
um when you pick up that food, are you like, are you eating with intention, or is it just you really like the way it tastes and the feeling you're getting
Hmm.
then? Because let me tell you
Yep.
something, you're not gonna feel good later if you're eating that crap food. I don't anyway. I get those headaches and I'm bloated, and
Yeah.
so again with the vape, what do? I just remove it. The bad food, it's not in my house. The vape, it stays in one room, and I just don't go in there. Right?
And I'll say you can do that for a while,
Yeah.
but you're still gonna, if you don't address the emotion that's tied to it,
Fair.
if you don't, like, you can become aware of when it happens and what the trigger is. But if you don't process that emotion, if you don't sit with it and feel it and let it go, you're still gonna revert back. And that's the same thing with food. And that's why people wonder why they can't stop habitually binging or stop
Yeah.
eating candy, because it's tied to an emotion that
Mhm.
we don't even know. We may not even know where it came from,
Mm-mm.
because a lot of times it's deep seated. It's from
Correct.
childhood. It's from a trauma that maybe we don't even look at as a trauma.
Or something that we've repressed. We don't even remember it.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And
So
so, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so I have addressed, I know the cause of my vaping because I go to that room now to
Mhm,
vape when my stress levels go up, when there's something
mhm,
that makes me anxious. So now it's about getting those two, because it's a habit. It is. Yes, there's not the addiction there anymore, but I've still got that habit, that self-soothing habit.
mhm.
And I've got to figure out how to untie that, how to make that emotion not be connected. Because all of us have stress. I mean, you have
It's
stress.
writing it down. It's journaling about it. Scribbling about it.
She feels
Not
like
to
she says
mention
this to me a lot, guys. That's why she's making that face. I'm kind of hard headed. If you guys haven't figured that out, it takes Lindsay telling me something because she's got good info. It takes her telling me something like 17 times before
but
I
it's not
actually listen.
but it's not even just listening, because we have good intentions and you have good intentions to do it. But that's the thing about, like, and we've talked about this before, you have me on the phone, and like when something comes up, we can talk through it. And that's where an accountability person in general,
To
again,
break those
diet.
bad habits, yes.
Yes. So if you don't have someone who is helping you walk through it and, helping you structure that routine of breaking those habits, it's really hard. So sometimes working with someone, or, having an accountability person or someone who's been through it, or, it's hard to break those things that are deep rooted without external help sometimes.
Yeah, I can see that
Yeah. Yeah.
for sure.
There's a lot of my self discovery journey that has not been alone. I have done a lot of work with external coaches, with, you know, people who I've paid a lot of money to help me through it, you know? And so there's no shame in that. There
Well,
really isn't.
but I also think there is no shame. You're exactly right. But I also think it's so different from where you are and where I am, because never would people around here, people with my same mindset, go, "Hey, go talk to a life coach.
I know.
It
I
might have
know.
changed things."
Yeah.
Because that's what I needed. I needed a life coach. I left
Yes.
high school and no longer had a guidance counselor. Like, you need
Thank
somebody.
you. You leave your parents, you leave your guidance counselor, this is one of the my biggest frustrations with life, and like watching as my kids get older. We're getting way off
Oh,
topic
we
here.
are. It is.
So sorry. But you don't
Fine.
have your parents,
Mhm.
your teachers, your anyone, and we throw these kids out at 18 years old without a plan of how to stick to habits. They have a routine in school, but we don't teach them how to structure their routine when they get out of school. We don't teach them how. And so I guess we can tie this back to habits, because no one teaches them routine building, structure building, good habits that they can keep when they go out on their own. We throw them out and we say, okay, figure it out. You've had 18 years of being directed and given guidance and a routine and a structure from your parents or a teacher or a job or a school. Now go figure it out.
Correct.
Yeah. That's why people get frustrated that they can't break habits on their own, because no one gave them a plan. No one helped them structure it. No one held their hand. So,
No, I agree with you 100%. Just for the simple fact, I moved away the month after I turned 17. I was basically 16 years old. Moved to college and I didn't have school all together. You have these classes spread out through the
yeah,
day. You have to
yeah,
manage your time. You have to structure it. If you
yeah,
don't do that, if you don't have those skills, then you don't have those skills. You weren't taught.
right, yeah,
So again, it's a different way of thinking, even from small town to big city. When I moved to Memphis to go to college,
yeah,
those things were more readily available to me. We had the counselors, we had people that would help.
mhm,
Whereas here,
yeah, yep.
yeah, it
All
is.
right.
All right, I know we're getting off topic.
Well, I guess we can run back into routines, as in we have been completely off of routine recently. And so generally we do podcast planning and figure out what our fun section is going to be at the end of the podcast. And to be quite honest, we don't have one today.
Well, and it's funny that we don't, Lindsay, because it's so ironic. It's about habits. We discussed we're going to talk about habits, routines, good, the bad, the ugly, and then all of a sudden we sat down to record and we're like, oh,
Yeah.
we didn't plan, because I have had so much going on that was out of routine. You have had so much going on that was out of routine. So forgive us for today.
And I think it's a good lesson that everyone can just hold on to and say that it's okay, and nobody's perfect.
Correct.
And while it was something that we thought, oh, this would be fun, it isn't something that's required. We can do a
Right.
podcast, we can put in it whatever we want.
Yeah.
So,
True.
sometimes you don't meet the expectations that you place on yourself, and
That's
it's okay.
okay.
Have a little grace. Don't get stuck in a shame and blame cycle like, oh, how did this happen? We're human, and you're human. And so be okay with it. So
Yes,
that's
I
kind of
agree. That's
yeah.
very well said.
Yeah, I think that's where I want to leave things, is
Me too.
just have a little grace with yourself. If you're building a new routine, if you're trying to establish new habits and there's a day that you just don't do it, you just don't meet it, it's okay. Get back at it tomorrow and do what you can do.
Right.
And what you can do is 100% perfect.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
So,
All
all right,
right.
guys, if you found value in today's episode, or you think that someone else could benefit from it, share this episode with them. Make sure, if you're watching on YouTube, to hit that bell, subscribe so that you don't miss an episode, and give us a 5-star review so that we are visible to other people who could also benefit from this. Have an awesome week, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.